Jessie here. Welcome to my podcast, YouTube channel, and thanks for watching Small Town Salon. Hey out there, my name's Jessie, and I own Wanderlust Salon and Spa in Sevierville and Gatlinburg, Tennessee. What I'm going to do with this podcast and YouTube channel is interview my staff, my managers, and hopefully some of our clients. I'm going to tell you where we are, where we came from, also where we want to go. An example of that is how we're going to open our third location. So we're going to be technically a pretty big salon in a very small town. So I want you guys to come along with me as we dive into the day-to-days, the how-tos, how we train, all the back-end stuff, and then we're even going to throw in some spicy salon drama every once in a while. So buckle up and hold on because you guys are going along for the ride. But first things first is, where do we come from? And I get asked this question a lot because I started my business 7 years ago as a single mom, and I've grown that business in 7 years from just myself to having 24 employees and grossing over $1 million a year in sales. And it was no easy task, but I like this story and I love telling this story to other women. That way they become motivated, because I know that if I can do this, other women can do it as well. I just recorded this amazing, about 10-minute long video, and it actually wasn't recording. So hopefully this part will be just as good as it was the first time, if not better. So basically what I was saying was how I started my business. And I kind of wanted to dive into how I opened this as a single mom. So when I started my business 7 years ago, I was a single mom. I have 3 children, and at the time, my 2 oldest were in primary school, and my youngest was, 3, I guess, or 4, and so he wasn't old enough to go in school, and I couldn't afford daycare. So I basically had to bring my youngest to work with me every single day, and my older 2 went to school from like 8 to 3, and so my work schedule looked like showing up at 8 a.m. with my toddler in a little wrap on my back and working until about 2 o'clock. And I wanted to give myself an hour buffer. That way I could actually get to school to pick my kids up. Then I would go pick them up, swing by and grab some fast food, and then bring all my kids back to do my afternoon appointments. And so I like to call my kids my little salon babies because they basically grew up in the salon, as a lot of hairstylist kids do. And so I did that for about 6 months, and one of my friend's moms actually saw how hard I was working, and my youngest is full of energy and life and giggles. And so there were days that doing hair behind the chair with him was a little exhausting. And so she saw that and so graciously paid a year in advance for my son to go to daycare. So from there, I put him in daycare. My older 2 kids started going to Boys and Girls Club. If you have a Boys and Girls Club in your area, definitely amazing for school-aged kids. It's super helpful for parents. I was able to work much longer in the afternoon. So once that started, I started working from about 8 to 6, Tuesday through Friday, and then I just did whatever I wanted to on Saturdays, or whoever wanted to book on Saturdays. And so I did that for about 2 years, and it got to the point where I was doing about $10,000 a month in hair by myself. And if you do hair, you know that that's a lot of hair. And I definitely didn't have my prices set high enough to where I didn't have to do as much hair. So I was 100% overworking myself. And after 2 years, I hurt my rotator cuff. So after going through MRIs and getting steroid shots in my arm and dealing with tendonitis and bursitis and all kinds of other issues in my arm, I decided it was time to hire employees. So that was 5 years ago, and about 5.5 years ago, and I'm extremely happy to say that 3 of those employees are still with me. One of them works from home, does social media, IT stuff, and she's basically my personal assistant, and 2 of those are hairstylists. And it's been amazing to watch them grow with the company as I also grow in my role as a leader. So I very much appreciate everybody who has ever worked for me and who will work for me, and I love everyone who is currently on my team right now. They are amazing, and we have a really good time at work. So from that point, that was 7 years ago, 5 years ago, and now I currently employ 24 people between 2 salons and spas and 2 retail stores. And I have the 4 businesses, and my very first month I grossed $87, and so I thought I was going to be a huge failure, and I thought I was going to starve, and I thought I made a terrible decision. But 7 years later, our business is grossing over $1 million a year, and I like to think that it's a success. So in this podcast and YouTube channel, what I would absolutely love to do is kind of go in depth for how I run things, how I hire, and just kind of let you guys see the back end of everything. And I'm also going to be interviewing my managers in the next episode. So stick around for that, because I'm sure they're going to have a lot more juicy details than I have. And hopefully we can get some salon drama thrown in there for you guys too, because living in a small town, we see a lot of drama. So perfect example is that Gatlinburg, I think it has a population of like 4,000 people. It's not very big, and so we see a lot of wives, ex-wives, girlfriends, and a slew of other people in between. What's really cool about my salon is that I live in a tourist town, and so about 50-50, we've got locals and we have tourists. And so I mean, I wouldn't get my hair done like on vacation, but people love it, and they see us. We see them from all over the world, and basically people come and sit in our chair and they say that they don't have a good salon in their hometown, so that's why they came to see us, which is amazing. So with all these different types of people flowing in and out of our community, we have some pretty awesome stories that we can tell you guys. So stick around and we will dive into that next. Okay, one of the first stories I'm going to tell you about a client is this specific client used to come into our old location when I was just starting to hire employees. And she always had the most elaborate stories. And in the beginning, I didn't think anything of it. But as time went on and these stories became more and more elaborate, perfect example is once she told me that half of her face was blown off in the military, and there were no scars or anything like that, but she said skin graft made it to where her face looked normal. And I'm like, okay, that can be believable. And then once she canceled an appointment because she told us that her husband died, and we're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I don't know what to say, but hopefully you're okay or whatever. And so we end up canceling her appointment, and she calls to rebook the appointment for her husband's funeral to get her hair done. And so we do her hair, and she leaves, and we hear from her about a week and a half later about how she hates her hair because her husband doesn't like it. And so at that point we were like, I think she might be a little crazy. We don't know exactly. And so every time she called to book after that, we just so happened to be busy and couldn't fit her in anymore. And this client ended up moving away. So there was always an elaborate story though. Like her face got blown off. She wanted to fly us all to Vegas because she was a showgirl and she wanted her hair and makeup done. The stories just kept getting more and more and more elaborate, and I think when she canceled her appointment, she didn't want to pay the cancellation fee, so she told us her husband died. Which is kind of crazy. Like, you don't just walk around telling people that your husband has died. But that's definitely, that's one of my top favorite stories of a crazy client. I've also been in this situation before where a client has been sitting in my chair and I'm doing their hair, and they're like upset because they caught their husband cheating on them. And at the time when their hair color's processing, my next client comes in because I'll do a full highlight and then a base color, and a lot of my clients get to know each other and they become friends. And this one particular instance, this lady's husband had been cheating on her, and my next client that came in was actually the mistress of the husband who this client was married to. And so that was a whole scandal in itself. But that happens in a really small town. Not a lot of people. So you get stories like that, and it can be a little overwhelming sometimes. But I wouldn't change my job for anything. I absolutely love being a hairstylist. I love owning a salon. I don't do services anymore, but my staff always have the most amazing stories, and I absolutely love listening to them. And I can never actually believe that it's real. Like, is this really happening to us right now? But the next time I interview one of my employees, we'll go over some more fun stories for you guys. So stay tuned.